I am Sienna, 32, an architect who has finally reached a milestone in my career. After a decade of tireless work, my innovative sustainable urban housing design earned me the prestigious Callahan Award. Tonight should have been perfect with my family in the front row as I delivered my acceptance speech. But as I stand backstage waiting to be called, their reserved seats remain empty, and my calls go unanswered. Something feels terribly wrong. If you've ever felt forgotten by those who should have been there, you'll understand what came next. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and subscribe to hear how this night changed everything. Architecture wasn't just my career, it was my refuge. Ever since I was a little girl, I would lose myself in sketching buildings, creating spaces where I imagined people would feel safe, inspired, and valued. My bedroom walls were plastered with drawings and magazine cutouts of famous structures rather than boy band posters. While other kids played video games, I spent hours with my Lego sets constructing elaborate structures that my parents would occasionally glance at with polite smiles before returning to whatever my siblings were doing. Growing up in the Brooks household meant understanding the unspoken hierarchy. My brother Jackson, 4 years older, was the golden child with his football trophies and athletic scholarships. Every Friday night, rain or shine, my parents would be in the bleachers, my dad, with his custom jacket bearing my brother's jersey number, my mom with her megaphone decorated in school colors. My sister Amelia, 2 years younger than me, was the musical prodigy whose concerts warranted professional recordings and flowers backstage. They rescheduled family vacations around her recitals and competitions. Then there was me, the middle child with the straight A's and quiet passion for architectural design. My academic achievements earned refrigerator space but rarely warranted schedule changes. When I won the state architectural design competition in high school, my parents sent me with my aunt because Amelia had a rehearsal that same weekend. When I graduated top of my class from university, they attended but left early because Jackson had an alumni football game. I learned to temper my expectations to understand that in the economy of family attention, my currency was somehow less valuable. "It's just because your achievements are more intellectual," my mother would explain when I occasionally gathered the courage to express my hurt feelings. "It's harder for us to get excited about things we don't fully understand." Jackson throws a touchdown, everyone cheers. Amelia plays Chopin, everyone can hear it. "Your architectural designs are amazing, sweetie, but they're just harder for us to appreciate in the moment." I accepted this explanation for years, internalizing the message that my passion was somehow less worthy of celebration. So I doubled down, working 80-hour weeks at my firm, taking on the projects nobody wanted, refining my skills, until even my most skeptical supervisors couldn't deny my talent. My social life dwindled to occasional coffee with colleagues. Romantic relationships never lasted because my partners couldn't understand my dedication. Architecture became both my love and my validation. The Callahan Award changed everything. It wasn't just any industry recognition, it was the Newcomer Award that had launched the careers of some of the most influential architects of our time. When the email arrived announcing I was this year's recipient, I screamed so loudly my assistant rushed in thinking I'd been injured. This wasn't just a certificate or a handshake. This was a black tie ceremony coverage in major design publications, and most importantly, undeniable proof that my work mattered. The moment I got the news, I called my parents. "Mom, Dad, I won the Callahan Award. The ceremony is next month, and I get to give an acceptance speech and everything. They're sending formal invitations, but I wanted you to know right away so you can save the date." "The Callahan Award." My mother's voice carried that familiar tone of trying to place something she should remember but doesn't. "Is that the big one you mentioned before?" "Yes, it's incredibly prestigious. Only one architect under 40 receives it each year. This could change my whole career." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We'll definitely be there. Let me grab my calendar." For the first time, I felt like my achievement had registered. My mother actually put it in her calendar while we were still on the phone. I called Jackson and Amelia next, and both responded with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. Jackson even suggested a family dinner before the ceremony, and Amelia offered to help me shop for a dress. Their reaction felt different this time, more substantial, as if the magnitude of this award had finally made my work tangible to them. I spent weeks preparing for the ceremony. I bought a midnight blue gown that cost more than my monthly rent, practiced my speech in front of the mirror until the words flowed naturally, and even splurged on professional hair and makeup. I wanted everything to be perfect. The event organizers asked for the names of my guests, and I proudly provided my family members' information for the reserved seating in the front row. I imagined them watching as I walked across that stage, finally seeing me in my element, recognized by peers who understood the significance of my work. The week before the ceremony, I noticed some concerning signs. My mother rescheduled our lunch date where we were supposed to discuss logistics. Jackson became vague about his arrival time. Amelia stopped responding to my texts about coordinating outfits. Still, I dismissed my worries, assuming they were just busy with their own lives and would pull through when it mattered. After all, this wasn't a school competition or graduation. This was the biggest moment of my career. The morning of the ceremony, I received an odd text from my mother. "So proud of you, sweetie. Something's come up, but trying to work it out." When I called immediately, her phone went to voicemail. I tried my father, Jackson, and Amelia with the same result. A knot formed in my stomach, but I pushed away the familiar feeling of disappointment. They wouldn't miss this, not today. They had promised. As I finished getting ready in my apartment, I kept checking my phone. Nothing. I took an Uber to the venue 2 hours early as requested for award recipients. The knot in my stomach tightened with each passing minute without word from my family. The grand ballroom of the Palmer Hotel gradually filled with architects, designers, and industry executives in elegant attire. Through the preparation room's doorway, I watched the empty seats in the front row that had small reserved placards with my family's names. My phone felt like a hot coal in my clutch as I checked it for the 20th time in half an hour. "Everything okay, Sienna?" asked Martin, my firm's principal, who had nominated me for the award. His bow tie was slightly crooked, and I resisted the urge to straighten it. "Yes, just waiting for my family to arrive," I said, forcing a smile. "They might be stuck in traffic." Martin nodded sympathetically. "The city's a mess tonight with that protest blocking downtown. I'm sure they'll make it in time." But as the minutes ticked by and the ceremony's start time approached, my anxiety escalated into full-blown panic. I excused myself to a quiet corner and called every family member again, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. "Mom, the ceremony starts in 20 minutes. Please call me back. I need to know if you're coming." "Dad, where are you guys? They're about to seat everyone." "Jackson, Amelia, please tell me you're on your way." No responses. With trembling fingers, I opened Instagram, an action born more from habit than intention. And there it was, posted 15 minutes ago, a photo that made my blood run cold. My entire family, including my parents, Jackson, Amelia, 2 aunts, an uncle, and 3 cousins, posed on a sunlit beach, cocktails in hand, wide smiles on their faces. The caption read, "Surprise beach getaway." Sometimes the best family trips are the spontaneous ones. Family first, #beach vibes, #making memories. They were in swimsuits and sunglasses, squinting against the bright sun, looking happier than I'd seen them in months. The location tag showed a popular resort in Florida, a 4-hour flight from where I stood in my expensive gown, about to receive the most significant recognition of my career alone. I stared at the photo until the colors blurred through my tears. My Aunt Susan, who had been tagged in the photo, had texted me just yesterday asking about the award ceremony details, claiming she wanted to send flowers. My cousin Jake, grinning with an arm around my brother, had specifically told me he couldn't attend because he had an important work presentation. They hadn't simply forgotten, they had deliberately chosen a vacation over my award ceremony and lied about it. The shaking in my hands spread to my entire body. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead as I struggled to breathe normally. The room seemed to tilt slightly as I leaned against the wall, clutching my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Miss Brooks, they're beginning the seating." A staff member approached, glancing with concern at my clearly distressed state. "Are you all right? Can I get you some water?" I straightened up, years of hiding disappointment kicking in automatically. "I'm fine, thank you. Just nervous." I tucked my phone away, unable to bear looking at the evidence of my family's betrayal for another second. "And your guests? Should we continue to hold their seats?" The question felt like a dagger. "No," I managed to say. "They won't be coming." As I walked toward the ballroom, my mind raced through possible explanations. Perhaps there was some emergency they couldn't tell me about. But an emergency wouldn't involve beach cocktails and smiling photos. Maybe they had planned this trip long ago and somehow all forgot the date of my ceremony, but they had confirmed multiple times and the hashtag specifically mentioned it being spontaneous. The truth was undeniable and crushing. My award simply wasn't important enough to them. Whatever last-minute opportunity arose for a beach vacation had easily outweighed their commitment to me. What hurt most was the coordination it must have required, the group chats and planning that deliberately excluded me. As I found my seat among the other award recipients, I felt oddly detached from my surroundings. Colleagues offered congratulations that I acknowledged with automatic smiles and nods. The program began with speeches I barely heard. I glanced repeatedly at the empty seats in the front row, visible evidence of what I had always suspected, but tried to deny. In my family's eyes, my accomplishments would always be secondary. My phone vibrated with a notification. For a split second, hope flared that it would be an explanation from my family. Instead, it was another Instagram alert. Amelia had posted a short video of Jackson doing a backflip into the resort pool with the caption, "Best brother ever." The casual cruelty of it made me physically sick. When the announcer began introducing the Callahan Award, describing it as recognizing extraordinary innovation from architects under 40 who are reshaping our understanding of urban living spaces, I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt like an imposter. If my own family didn't value my work enough to show up, perhaps it wasn't as significant as I'd believed. This year's recipient has designed affordable housing that doesn't merely shelter but nurtures community through thoughtful shared spaces and environmental integration. Please welcome to the stage Sienna Brooks. The applause felt distant as I rose from my seat. My carefully rehearsed speech, written with my family in mind, now seemed inappropriate. As I approached the podium, I frantically revised my words, excising all mentions of family support and childhood dreams they had encouraged. The truth was, I had reached this moment despite their indifference, not because of their support. The lights were blinding as I stepped onto the stage. The crystal award in my hands caught the light, sending small rainbows dancing across my gown. I looked out at the sea of faces, strangers who had come to celebrate excellence in my field. Their applause was genuine, their recognition professional. Yet all I could focus on were the 5 empty chairs in the front row, each with a small card bearing my family members' names. "Thank you." I began, my voice steadier than I expected. Architecture has always been about creating spaces where people feel they belong. The irony wasn't lost on me as I continued with a much abbreviated version of my original speech. No childhood anecdotes about building Lego cities with my father. No mention of my mother saving for my first professional drafting table. No acknowledgement of siblings who claimed to be my biggest fans. Instead, I spoke about the philosophy behind my design, the communities it would serve, and the mentors who had guided me. 3 minutes instead of the practice 10. When I finished, the applause seemed tinged with confusion at my brevity, but I couldn't bear to stay on that stage any longer than necessary. As I returned to my seat, I felt hollow. The award that had seemed so monumentally important now felt like a prop in a play where I'd been miscast. Around me, other recipients hugged family members, posed for photos, accepted congratulatory kisses. I sat alone, the cold metal of the award, a stark contrast to the warmth I had anticipated feeling tonight. The reception afterward was even worse. Well-wishers approached with the inevitable question, "Is your family here?" Each time I forced a smile and offered vague excuses about last-minute emergencies, the lies tasting bitter on my tongue. I clutched a champagne flute like a lifeline, barely sipping as I moved mechanically through conversations. "That was quite the concise speech," remarked a silver-haired woman as she approached me by the dessert table. "Sienna Brooks. Yes, I'm Eliza Donovan." I recognized her name immediately. Eliza Donovan was a pioneer in sustainable urban architecture, one of the few women to lead a major firm in the 80s, when the field was even more male-dominated than it was now. Under different circumstances, meeting her would have been a highlight of my career. "It's an honor to meet you," I managed, extending my hand. "Your work on the Richardson complex has been a huge influence on me." "Interesting you should mention that project," she said, studying me with keen eyes that missed nothing. Your affordable housing design reminds me of my early work, but with innovations I wish I'd thought of. She glanced around. You seem a bit adrift tonight. Not quite what you expected. Something about her direct gaze broke through my carefully constructed facade. No, I admitted. Not at all what I expected. Eliza nodded as if I'd confirmed something. Awards are strange things. They validate our work but can't fill the spaces inside us that need something else entirely. She touched my arm briefly. There's a powder room down the hall if you need a moment. Sometimes it's better to acknowledge the disappointment than to pretend it doesn't exist. As if she'd given me permission, tears began welling in my eyes. I nodded gratefully and quickly made my way to the restroom she'd mentioned. Inside a pristine stall, I finally allowed myself to cry silent sobs that shook my shoulders as I clutched my award to my chest. How could they do this? Not just miss the ceremony, but actively choose a vacation instead. Post about it publicly while I was receiving my award. The deliberate nature of it felt like a statement. You and your achievements will never be our priority. I thought of all the football games I'd attended for Jackson, sitting through rain and snow cheering until my voice gave out. The countless music recitals for Amelia Flowers purchased from my college student budget, standing ovations I'd initiated. The birthdays, graduations, promotions I'd celebrated with enthusiasm because that's what families did. They showed up. My phone buzzed in my clutch. Then again, and again. I pulled it out to find a text from my mother. Hope your award thing went well. Sorry we couldn't make it. Jackson found an amazing deal on a beach house and we decided to make a family trip of it. We'll explain everything when we're back. So proud of you, sweetie. The casualness of it, the complete lack of understanding of what she had done, broke something inside me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Mascara streaked down my cheeks and made a decision. I washed my face, reapplied my makeup, and straightened my shoulders. I would not let them ruin this night entirely. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much. As I returned to the reception, I promised myself I would stay exactly 1 hour longer, make meaningful connections with colleagues, and find some way to salvage the professional aspect of this evening, even if the personal side was irreparably damaged. The reception was winding down when I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. I turned to find myself face to face with an elderly gentleman whose dignified bearing commanded immediate respect. His tailored suit spoke of quiet wealth, but it was his eyes that captured my attention, bright blue and discerning beneath bushy white eyebrows. "Miss Brooks?" he said, his voice a rich baritone that somehow cut through the ambient noise of the room. Your acceptance speech was refreshingly substantive. No platitudes or excessive sentimentality, just the architecture speaking for itself. I appreciate that. Thank you, I replied, trying to place his face among the industry leaders I had researched before the event. And you are? Marcus Wellington, he said, simply extending a hand. I couldn't help the small gasp that escaped me. Marcus Wellington wasn't just an architect, he was a legend, the visionary behind some of the most innovative public spaces of the past 40 years. His textbooks had been my Bibles in graduate school, his design philosophy, the foundation upon which I had built my own approach. It's an extraordinary honor to meet you, Mr. Wellington, I said, grasping his hand perhaps a bit too firmly. Your work on integrated community spaces fundamentally shaped my thinking about architecture as a social catalyst. A smile creased his weathered face. And that thinking is evident in your award-winning design. Most young architects get caught up in aesthetics, forgetting that buildings must serve the people who inhabit them. Your housing complex doesn't just shelter bodies, it nurtures the human spirit. That's far rarer than it should be. His praise, so specific and insightful, filled a small corner of the emptiness my family's absence had created. Here was someone who truly understood what I had been trying to accomplish, who saw value in my work without needing it explained or justified. I don't give praise lightly, Miss Brooks, Marcus continued. I've watched your rise with interest. The Patterson Building renovation, your work with post-industrial spaces in Detroit, and now this award-winning affordable housing concept. You have a rare gift for seeing potential where others see only constraints. Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small silver key attached to a simple leather fob. I'd like you to have this, he said, pressing it into my palm. I stared at the key in confusion. I don't understand. It's the key to Studio 4 at 1742 Weston Street. He explained, his eyes twinkling with what looked like mischief. Some might call it a job offer, but I prefer to think of it as an invitation to join a conversation about the future of urban architecture. Weston Street? You mean the Wellington Collective? My voice rose in disbelief. The Wellington Collective was the most exclusive architecture think tank in the country, possibly the world. A dozen architects working under Marcus's guidance, each with private studio space in a converted warehouse, collaborating on the most challenging and innovative projects in the field. Getting invited to join was like receiving a golden ticket in the mail. Marcus nodded. We have an opening, and I believe you're the right fit. The key gives you access to the building and your personal studio space. As I stood speechless, he added quietly, Welcome home, Sienna. Welcome home. Those two words hit me with unexpected force. In that moment, the contrast between my biological family's rejection and this professional recognition couldn't have been starker. Here was someone who valued exactly the part of me my family had always overlooked. I don't know what to say, I stammered, clutching the key. Say you'll come by tomorrow at 10, Marcus replied. The collective is gathering to discuss our next major project, and I'd like to introduce you. Bring a portfolio if you wish, though I'm already familiar with your work. As he spoke, a small group approached us. 3 people varying in age from about my age to mid-50s, all regarding me with friendly curiosity. Ah, said Marcus. Let me introduce some of your potential colleagues. This is Haruto Tanaka, specializing in biomimicry in architecture. A Japanese man in his early 40s gave a small bow. Your use of natural ventilation systems in the Patterson renovation was inspired, he said. I'd love to discuss your approach sometime. And this is Zoe Washington, our resident expert on community engagement in architectural planning. A black woman about 10 years older than me extended her hand warmly. I've been following your work since your thesis project on participatory design methods. Very impressive integration of stakeholder input. Finally, James Chen, who focuses on adaptive reuse of industrial spaces. A man around my age with an easy smile shook my hand vigorously. Your Detroit project was a masterclass in honoring architectural history while creating functional modern spaces. I have so many questions about your material choices. I stood surrounded by people who not only knew my work in detail, but valued the very aspects of it that made me most proud. No need to justify or explain why architecture mattered, no polite nods masking indifference. These people spoke my language, shared my passions. The collective works somewhat differently than traditional firms, Marcus explained as the small group chatted around us. Each architect maintains independence while collaborating on select projects. We share resources, knowledge, and occasionally clients, but you'd be free to pursue your own interests as well. It's less hierarchical than most firms, more of a community of equals. A community. Again, that word struck me deeply. While my family was posting beach photos with hashtags about togetherness, I was being offered genuine connection with people who understood a fundamental part of my identity. I'd be honored to join, I said, finding my voice at last. Thank you for this opportunity. As we continued talking, I almost forgot about the family who hadn't shown up. Almost. The key in my hand represented something I'd been searching for much longer than I'd realized: recognition, yes, but also belonging. The next morning, I stood outside a nondescript brick building in the city's arts district, the address matching the one on the key fob Marcus had given me. Despite getting only a few hours of sleep after the emotional roller coaster of the previous night, I felt a flutter of excitement as I approached the entrance. The Wellington Collective was the architectural equivalent of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, mysterious and revered, its inner workings known to only a select few. The key slid perfectly into the lock and the heavy door swung open to reveal a space that took my breath away. The former warehouse had been transformed into an architect's paradise with soaring ceilings, abundant natural light streaming through clerestory windows, and an open central area surrounded by glass-walled studios. The renovation honored the building's industrial past, while creating a thoroughly modern workspace, exactly the balance I strived for in my own projects. Sienna. You made it, called a voice, and I turned to see Zoe Washington approaching with 2 coffee cups. Marcus mentioned you might come by this morning. Thought you might need this after last night's festivities. She handed me one of the cups, and I was touched by the simple gesture of welcome. Thanks, this is perfect. And yes, I definitely need the caffeine today. Come on, I'll give you a quick tour before the others arrive, Zoe offered, leading me through the space. Each studio reflected its occupant's personality and specialization, while maintaining a cohesive aesthetic throughout the building. Some were minimalist and orderly, others cluttered with models and materials, all humming with creative energy. And this, Zoe said, stopping before a glass-walled space with an empty drafting table and clean white walls, is Studio 4. Yours if you want it. I stepped inside, running my fingers along the pristine work surface. Unlike the other studios filled with personal touches, this one was a blank canvas waiting for my imprint. Near the window sat a small orchid plant with a card propped against the pot. I opened it to find a note in elegant handwriting. Spaces become homes when we fill them with passion and purpose. Welcome to the collective, Marcus. He's got a flair for the dramatic, Zoe said with a smile, watching my reaction. But he means it. Marcus doesn't invite people to join us lightly. How long have you been part of the collective? I asked, still taking in what would be my new professional home. 7 years now. Came here after burning out at a corporate firm where I was designing soulless office towers, Zoe replied, leaning against the doorframe. Best decision I ever made. We're a bit like a family here, all with our quirks and specialties, but supporting each other's vision. Family. There was that word again, loaded with expectations and disappointments. But maybe Zoe meant something different than what I'd experienced, something chosen rather than inherited. Before I could respond, more people began filtering into the central area. I recognized Haruto and James from last night, along with several other architects whose work I admired from afar. They greeted me with genuine warmth, asking questions about my projects that demonstrated they had actually studied my portfolio, not just glanced at it. Among them was a woman in her early 30s with a vibrant energy that immediately drew attention. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her clothes, while professional, had an artistic flair that spoke of confident self-expression. You must be Sienna, she said, approaching with an outstretched hand. I'm Nora Wellington. Dad wouldn't stop talking about your work over breakfast this morning. Wellington, I asked, connecting the dots. You're Marcus's daughter. She nodded with a grin. Guilty as charged. I handle the business side of the collective, leaving the creative geniuses free to design without worrying about contracts and billing. Speaking of which, we should discuss your transition whenever you're ready. I assume you'll need to give notice at your current firm. The realization that this was actually happening, that I was being offered a place among the architectural elite, finally sank in. Yes, I should give at least 2 weeks' notice, I replied, feeling simultaneously excited and overwhelmed. As we gathered around a large conference table for the morning meeting, I observed the easy camaraderie between the collective members. They challenged each other's ideas respectfully, built upon suggestions, and approached problems collaboratively. Marcus facilitated, rather than dictated, drawing out each person's strengths while maintaining the discussion's focus. When he asked for my input on a community center project they were considering, I offered tentative suggestions that were met with thoughtful consideration rather than dismissal. Nobody asked me to justify why my ideas mattered or pretended to understand while actually tuning out. For perhaps the first time in my professional life, I felt fully seen and heard. During a break, Nora approached me with 2 cups of tea. So tell me about yourself beyond the impressive resume, she said, settling into a chair beside me. What does Sienna Brooks do when she's not designing award-winning buildings? The question caught me off guard. The truth was, architecture had consumed so much of my identity that I struggled to define myself outside of it. I run, I said finally, not competitively or anything, just to clear my head, and I collect vintage architectural drawings when I can afford them. Nora nodded as if these small details were fascinating. Running's good for the soul. Maybe we could go together sometime. I know all the best routes along the river. I'd like that, I replied, surprised to find I meant it. The idea of friendship outside of professional networking felt almost foreign after years of prioritizing work above personal connections. Throughout the day, I was struck by how different this environment felt from my current firm. There, despite my success, I always sensed I needed to prove myself to justify my seat at the table. Here, my inclusion seemed assumed, my voice valued from the start. By late afternoon, as I prepared to leave and return to my apartment, Marcus found me gathering my notes. "What do you think?" he asked simply. "Will you join us?" "Without question," I replied. "It's an incredible opportunity. I just need to wrap things up at my current position." He nodded approvingly. "Good. Take whatever time you need for a proper transition. We'll be here." As I turned to go, he added, "Sienna, I meant what I said last night. Welcome home." Those words stayed with me as I left the building and headed toward my apartment. Home. Such a loaded concept. I had always thought of home as the house where my family lived, the relationships that should have nurtured me, but often left me feeling peripheral. But perhaps home could be something else entirely, a place where your true self was recognized and valued. As I approached my apartment building, I checked my phone for the first time since morning and froze. 66 missed calls, voice messages, texts, all from my family members. My hands trembled as I unlocked my apartment door, the weight of 66 missed calls making my phone feel like a brick in my pocket. Inside, I dropped my portfolio on the coffee table and sank onto my couch, staring at the notification screen as if it might explain itself. The timestamps showed a pattern: sporadic calls throughout the afternoon, then a sudden avalanche beginning around 8 p.m., right about when I would have been accepting my award. The first voicemail was from my mother, her tone casual, as if checking in after a routine doctor's appointment rather than missing the most significant event of my professional life. "Hi, sweetie. Just wanted to make sure your award thing went well. Call me when you can." The next several followed a similar pattern, gradually increasing in urgency, but lacking any acknowledgement of what they'd done. Then came my father's first message. His voice strained. "Sienna, call your mother. She's getting worried." By the 20th message, panic had set in. My mother again. "Sienna, this isn't like you. We're getting really concerned. Please call as soon as you get this." My brother Jackson, unusually serious. "Hey, sis, we're all freaking out a little here. No one's heard from you since before your ceremony. Just let someone know you're okay, all right?" The disconnect was stunning. They had collectively decided to skip the most important night of my career for a beach vacation, publicly posted about it during the actual event, and now were acting concerned when I hadn't immediately responded to their afterthought inquiries. The audacity was almost impressive. I played through more messages, each more frantic than the last. My sister Amelia crying, my father threatening to call the police, my mother saying they were cutting their trip short to come check on me. None of them not once acknowledged the real issue, the gaping wound their absence had created. As I listened, a new message came in from my mother. "We're at the airport now, getting the first flight back. Please, please call us Sienna." The thought of them showing up at my door expecting to be comforted for their worry while still not recognizing their betrayal was unbearable. I needed to head this off. With a deep breath, I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring. "Sienna, thank God we've been so worried. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. "Just got home from a meeting." "A meeting? But we've been calling since yesterday. What kind of meeting lasts that long? We thought something terrible had happened." I closed my eyes, gathering my strength. "Mom, I saw the beach photos you all posted during my award ceremony." A pause. "Oh, that? Yes, we're in Florida. Jackson found this amazing deal on a beach house that was only available this weekend. It was very last minute, but the whole family could make it, so we decided to surprise everyone with a little getaway." "The whole family except me," I said quietly. "Well, you had your award thing," she replied, as if that explained everything. "We knew you couldn't come, but we'll celebrate when we get back. Maybe dinner at that Italian place you like." The casual dismissal of my achievement, the complete lack of understanding of what she had done, suddenly clarified everything. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a scheduling oversight. This was a pattern one I had accepted all my life, where my priorities would always be secondary to everyone else's desires. "Mom," I said slowly, "do you remember how many of Jackson's football games I attended in high school?" "What, I don't know, a lot, I guess. Why are you asking about that now?" "All of them. I attended all of them. Even when I had major projects due or study groups scheduled, I rearranged my life because his games were important to him and he was important to me. Sienna, what does this have to do with anything? And Amelia's recitals, I was at every single one. I have recordings of all of them on my old phone. I helped her practice turned pages for her, brought flowers every time. That's very sweet, dear, but I don't see what this has to do with… Last night, I continued, cutting her off. I received the Callahan Award. It's given to one architect under 40 each year, and it often defines entire careers. I had seats reserved for all of you. I practiced my speech for weeks. I thanked you and Dad in it, talked about how you supported my dreams. I bought a dress that cost $2,000 because I wanted everything to be perfect for the night my family would finally see me recognized for the work that has defined my life. Silence on the line. And instead of being there, you all went to the beach. Not because of an emergency, not because of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but because Jackson found a good deal. And you posted photos during the exact time of my ceremony so I could see exactly what was more important than supporting me. Sienna, you're being a little dramatic. It's just an award. There will be others. This was a chance for the family to be together. The family, I repeated the phrase, cutting deeply. The family minus me. Because my achievements don't count as real family milestones, do they? They never have. That's not fair. My mother's voice rose defensively. We've always supported your architectural stuff. We came to your college graduation. You left halfway through to make it to Jackson's alumni game, I reminded her. You've never once visited one of my buildings. You can't even name a single project I've worked on. The Patterson thing, she attempted, likely recalling the name from our earlier conversations about the award. The irony is, Mom last night should have been devastating standing on that stage looking at your empty seats. And it was for a while. But then something amazing happened. I met people who actually value what I do, who see me clearly. I've been offered a position at the Wellington Collective. The Wellington what? Her confusion only confirmed what I already knew. She had never listened when I talked about my aspirations, my heroes in the field, the achievements that would mark success in my world. It doesn't matter, I said softly. What matters is that I'm done expecting you to care about the things that are important to me. I'm done rearranging my life for family members who won't even show up for my defining moments. Sienna, you can't mean that we're your family. So we missed one event. Is that really worth throwing away our relationship? It wasn't one event, Mom. It was a pattern that's existed my entire life, and I'm not throwing away our relationship. I'm just finally acknowledging what it actually is, not what I've pretended it was. What does that mean? Are you saying you don't want to see us anymore? I sighed, suddenly exhausted. No, I'm saying I'm going to stop expecting you to be something you're not. I'll see you at holidays and family gatherings. I'll call on birthdays. But I'm not going to keep pouring my heart into people who don't value what matters to me. I can't believe you're being so cold about this. We were worried sick about you. You were worried for 12 hours after ignoring what was important to me for 30 years. I have to go now. I have a lot to organize for my new position. Sienna, wait. But I had already ended the call. My hands were steady now, the shaking replaced by a strange calm. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without cushioning it to protect their feelings. It hadn't changed them, but it had changed something in me. My phone immediately began ringing again, my sister this time. I silenced it and set it aside. There would be more calls, more attempts to make me feel guilty for having boundaries, more efforts to reestablish the old dynamic. But something had shifted permanently inside me. I had glimpsed an alternative, a community where I was valued for exactly who I was, and I couldn't unsee it. I opened my laptop and began drafting my resignation letter to my current firm. As painful as the last 24 hours had been, they had also been clarifying. I knew now that I had been looking for validation in the wrong places. My family might never truly see me, but that didn't mean I wasn't worthy of being seen. The key Marcus had given me sat on my coffee table beside my award. 2 symbols of recognition, one professional, one personal. Together they offered a new path forward, one where I defined my worth not by the approval of people who couldn't give it, but by the authentic connections I formed with those who could. My sister called again, then my brother, then my father. I let them go to voicemail as I continued working on my transition plan. The choice wasn't about cutting them off, but about redirecting my emotional energy toward relationships that nourished rather than depleted me. It was about building a life where I was more than an afterthought, where my passion wasn't something to be tolerated, but celebrated. As I worked, a text came in from Nora Wellington. Thinking about our run tomorrow. How does 7 a.m. at Riverside Park work for you? I smiled and replied, perfect. Looking forward to it. Small steps toward a new kind of belonging. I glanced at my phone, now showing 80 missed calls from my family. They were in panic mode, their vacation disrupted by my unexpected boundary setting. Part of me felt guilty for causing them distress, but a stronger part recognized that their panic was about losing control of the narrative, not about losing me. They wanted the comfortable dynamic where my needs were always flexible, always secondary. I had spent years building beautiful spaces for others, while neglecting to create a solid foundation for myself. That would change now. I would construct my life with the same care I devoted to my buildings, intentional about every element, prioritizing structural integrity over superficial appearance. Tomorrow I would run with Nora. I would give notice at my firm. I would begin the process of moving into Studio 4 at the Wellington Collective. And I would start building something new, not out of concrete and glass, but out of choices that honored my authentic self. My award sat gleaming in the fading daylight. Not a symbol of family failure as I had initially feared, but a marker of unexpected beginnings. Sometimes I realized we find our true path only when the familiar road disappears beneath our feet. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of change. My small studio at the Wellington Collective had transformed from an empty shell into a space that reflected both my professional identity and personal evolution. Sketches and models populated the work surfaces. Reference books lined the shelves, and near the window, the orchid Marcus had given me not only survived but thrived, putting out a new stem of delicate white blooms. The collective had become the creative home I never knew I needed. Each day brought new challenges and inspirations as we collaborated on projects that pushed boundaries while remaining deeply human-centered. My first major commission as part of the group was nearing completion, a community arts center that incorporated many of the principles that had earned me the Callahan Award, but with an ambition and scope I couldn't have attempted at my previous firm. More significantly, I had found connections that went beyond professional courtesy. Nora and I ran together 3 mornings a week, our conversations ranging from architectural theory to childhood memories to dating disasters. Haruto had become a valued mentor, his experience with sustainable materials enhancing my own designs. James and I had developed a friendly rivalry that pushed us both to greater creativity. Even Marcus, whose reputation had initially intimidated me, had become a father figure who offered guidance without imposing his vision on mine. My relationship with my biological family had settled into something new as well. After the initial flood of panicked calls, there had been anger, guilt trips, and eventually a fragile acceptance that things had changed. I maintained contact, but with firm boundaries. I called weekly and visited monthly, but I no longer rescheduled my life around their priorities or expected them to understand my passion. When my mother asked perfunctory questions about my work, I gave simple answers rather than hoping for genuine interest. When family gatherings conflicted with professional commitments, I made choices based on what mattered to me, not what would cause the least friction. They were trying in their way. Jackson had visited my studio once, looking uncomfortable but making an effort. My father had asked to see photos of the Arts Center project, though his eyes glazed over as I explained its innovative aspects. Amelia sent occasional texts asking how I was doing. It wasn't the relationship I had longed for growing up, but it was honest, and there was a certain peace in that authenticity. Today marked another milestone. The Wellington Collective had been nominated for a prestigious group award for our collaborative work on a disaster-resistant housing project in a coastal community. The ceremony would take place that evening at the same hotel where I had received the Callahan Award half a year earlier. "Nervous about tonight?" Nora asked as we finished our morning run, stretching beside the river as the sun rose behind the city skyline. "Not really," I replied, surprised to realize it was true. "It would be wonderful to win, but the work itself has already been so rewarding. Nora smiled knowingly. That's how you know you're in the right place. When the external validation becomes a nice bonus rather than the whole point. She checked her watch. I should get going. Dad wants to review the presentation one more time before tonight. See you at 4 to get ready. We had planned to prepare for the ceremony together at her apartment, a far cry from my solitary preparations for the Callahan ceremony. Wouldn't miss it, I confirmed. Back at my apartment, I found a small package outside my door with a Florida postmark. Inside was a card from my mother. Thought you might like to wear this tonight. Love, Mom. Beneath the card lay a velvet jewelry box containing my grandmother's pearl earrings, which I had admired since childhood. The gesture touched me even as I noted she hadn't mentioned attending the ceremony despite my invitation weeks ago. Progress came in small steps, I reminded myself. The earrings would indeed complement my dress perfectly. As I was getting ready to head to the collective for morning meetings, my phone rang with my sister's number. I hesitated before answering our conversation, still tentative after months of readjustment. Hey, Amelia, I answered, bracing for whatever family drama might be brewing. Sienna, she said, her voice unusually serious. I need to tell you something, and I should have said it months ago. I sat down, sensing this wasn't a casual call. I'm listening. That night, your award ceremony, she began, then paused. It wasn't just that we forgot or that Jackson found a good deal on a beach house. We made a choice, and it was the wrong one. My heart thumped painfully in my chest. What do you mean? Jackson had just closed on the beach house that morning. He wanted to celebrate immediately, said it was perfect timing because everyone was available. I mentioned your ceremony, and he said, and I quote, "It's just another boring work thing for Sienna. There will be 1,000,000 more awards in her future." I closed my eyes, the casual dismissal hitting hard even months later. Mom agreed with him, Amelia continued. She said you'd understand because you always do, and it would mean so much to Jackson to have everyone there for his first property purchase. I went along with it even though it felt wrong. I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice steady despite the renewed hurt. Because I saw the invitation to your ceremony tonight on Mom's desk. She's not planning to come, and neither is Dad. They're going to some charity thing at Jackson's golf club, and I couldn't let it happen again without at least being honest with you. The familiar pain mingled with something new, gratitude for her honesty, even if it came late. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry, Sienna. Really sorry. Not just for missing your award, but for all the times we've treated your achievements as less important. And I'm sorry it took losing your trust for me to see it. Are you coming tonight? I asked, not sure what answer I hoped for. A pause. I want to, but I have a rehearsal I can't miss. Quarterfinals for the symphony position. Another pause. That sounds like an excuse, doesn't it? Like what we always do to you. It does, I acknowledged, but I also know how important that audition is to you. I wouldn't want you to miss it even for my ceremony. The difference is, you mean that, Amelia said softly. If I asked you to skip your ceremony for my audition, you'd probably do it. You've always supported us, and we've just taken it for granted. The recognition, even coming so late, meant something. Maybe someday we'll find a better balance, I offered. I hope so, she replied. Good luck tonight, though. I know you don't need it. Your work speaks for itself. After a moment, she added, I've started following the Wellington Collective's Instagram. The stuff you're doing there is really beautiful, Sienna. I might not understand all of it, but I can see why it matters. It was a small thing, but it felt like the first green shoot after a long winter. Thanks, Amelia. That means a lot. After we hung up, I found myself surprisingly at peace. 6 months ago, the confirmation that my family had deliberately chosen to skip my ceremony for a beach house celebration would have devastated me. Now it simply confirmed what I already knew: my worth wouldn't be found in their validation. When I arrived at the collective that morning, Marcus was already in the common area reviewing presentation materials for the evening. He looked up with a warm smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. The woman of the hour, ready for tonight. More than ready, I replied confidently. He studied me for a moment. You know, when I gave you that key 6 months ago, I had high expectations. but you've exceeded every one of them. The Arts Center design is remarkable, Sienna. It's going to change lives. Coming from Marcus Wellington architectural visionary, whose work had shaped cities around the world, such praise was extraordinary. Yet what struck me most was how different it felt from the validation I had once desperately sought from my family. This wasn't about filling an emotional void, but about professional recognition from someone who truly understood the work and its meaning. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means everything coming from you." He waved away my gratitude with characteristic modesty. "The collective is stronger with you in it. That's just a fact." Looking back at his notes, he added, "Nora mentioned you'll be getting ready together before the ceremony." "That's the plan. She insisted on helping me with my hair." Marcus chuckled. "She's been like that since she was little, always wanting to take care of people." When her mother died, Nora was only 12, but she appointed herself my personal assistant, making sure I ate regular meals and didn't work all night. His expression softened with memory. "I thought I was the one helping her through grief, but looking back, she was saving me just as much." I had known that Marcus was a widower, but hadn't heard him speak of his late wife before. "You raised an amazing daughter," I said. "We raised each other in many ways," he replied thoughtfully. "Family isn't always who you're born to, Sienna. Sometimes it's who you choose and who chooses you in return." His words resonated deeply with my own journey over the past 6 months. I had spent years trying to earn my place in a family structure that wasn't designed to see me clearly. Now I was building connections based on mutual respect and genuine understanding, creating a chosen family alongside my biological one. The day passed quickly as we finalized preparations for the evening. At 4, I met Nora at her apartment as planned. Her living space reflected her personality, colorful, organized chaos with art on every wall and plants in every corner. Music played softly in the background as she helped me style my hair in an elegant updo. "These earrings are gorgeous," she commented as I put on my grandmother's pearls. "Vintage, family heirlooms," I explained. "My mother sent them this morning." "Are your parents coming tonight?" I shook my head. "No, they have another commitment." Nora frowned slightly but didn't press. Over the months, I had shared enough about my family dynamic for her to understand the complicated terrain. "Well, their loss," she said decisively. "You look stunning, and you're part of a team that's about to win a major award. We'll celebrate enough for everyone." When we arrived at the hotel, the scene was dramatically different from my previous award experience. Instead of walking in alone, I entered with the entire Wellington Collective. Marcus elegant in a classic tuxedo, Nora radiant in emerald green Haruto James Zoe, and the others, all of us united not just as colleagues, but as a community. The reserved table near the front bore no empty seats. Throughout the dinner preceding the awards presentation, conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and thoughtful discussions of ongoing projects. When it came time for the announcements, we clasped hands under the table, a unified team, regardless of the outcome. "And the Urban Design Excellence Award goes to," the presenter announced, "the Wellington Collective for their Resilient Communities Initiative." We erupted in cheers, embracing each other before making our way to the stage. Marcus, as the founder, accepted the award but immediately called all of us forward to share the moment. As we stood together under the lights, I caught sight of our reflection in the ballroom's decorative mirrors, a group of diverse individuals united by shared purpose and mutual respect. This, I realized, was what it meant to truly belong. Not to be tolerated or accommodated, but to be integral, to have your contributions recognized as essential to the whole. I had found my place not by diminishing myself to fit where I wasn't wanted, but by bringing my full self to a space where I was needed. After the ceremony, as we celebrated at a nearby restaurant, Marcus raised his glass in a toast. "To the collective," he said, his voice carrying across the table, "and to the newest member who helped make this award possible. Sienna, your vision for the community gathering spaces transformed the entire project." The others joined in the toast, each adding specific praise for elements of my design contribution. Their words weren't vague or general, but detailed and precise, the kind of recognition that could only come from truly seeing someone's work. Later, as the evening wound down, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The night air was cool against my skin as I looked up at the city skyline, the buildings illuminated against the dark sky. Somewhere in that urban landscape was the art center I had designed nearing completion. Soon it would be filled with people creating learning, connecting their lives enhanced by spaces I had imagined. "Beautiful night," said Marcus, joining me on the restaurant's terrace. "Perfect night," I agreed. "I've been meaning to ask," he said, leaning against the railing beside me. "Are you happy with your decision to join us? 6 months and no regrets." I considered the question seriously. The past half year had brought challenges alongside rewards, professional stretching that sometimes felt uncomfortable, personal growth that occasionally hurt. But beneath it all was a solid foundation of belonging I had never experienced before. "No regrets," I said firmly. "This is where I'm meant to be." Marcus nodded, satisfied. "I knew from your Callahan project that you belonged with us. Not just because of your technical skill, impressive as it is, but because you understand that architecture isn't just about buildings. It's about creating spaces where people can be their best selves." The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent years designing environments for others to thrive while lacking that very thing myself. Now I had finally found my own space to flourish professionally and personally. "The award tonight is wonderful," Marcus continued, "but it's just the beginning. The collective is planning to expand our international presence next year. I'd like you to lead the Tokyo project if you're interested. Haruto would consult, of course, but your aesthetic would be perfect for what the client wants." The offer took my breath away. Leading an international project was an opportunity beyond anything I could have imagined 6 months ago. "I'd be honored," I managed to say. "Excellent. We'll discuss details next week." He patted my shoulder affectionately before heading back inside. Alone again, I checked my phone and found a text from my sister. "Congratulations on the award, saw it announced on the architecture blog I started following. So proud of you." A small gesture, but sincere. Perhaps someday my family would truly understand what architecture meant to me, or perhaps they never would. Either way, I was no longer defining my worth by their ability to see me clearly. I texted back a simple thank you before returning inside to join the others. Nora immediately pulled me into a conversation about weekend plans, while James debated material choices with Haruto across the table. Zoe passed me a dessert menu with her recommendations starred. Small moments of inclusion that together created something profound, the feeling of being exactly where I belonged. Have you ever found your true family in unexpected places? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the journey to belonging takes us far from where we started, but leads us exactly where we need to be. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences about finding your authentic path. Remember, the people who truly see you are the ones worth building your life around. Thank you for listening to my story today.